In the heart of the Andromeda Nexus, the Galactic Accord's grand census was underway, a centuries-old tradition carried out by an army of data archivists, recorders, and explorers. Every few decades, they combed the outer regions of the galaxy, cataloging newly discovered species, civilizations, and uncharted planets. Their goal was peace and order, not conquest, and their methods were meticulous but dismissive of anything below their technological standard. Earth, or Sol 3, as it was labeled in their vast databases, had finally come under their observation. After a brief scan of its atmosphere, electromagnetic emissions, and scattered radio signals, the verdict was swift and confident. Category D, harmless pre-FTL species. On board the Varellan vessel Orenthi, Archivist Vaughn reviewed the Earth file while sipping a glowing purple drink, barely containing a smirk as he played through samples of human transmissions. Pop music blared through the ship's speakers, followed by an old war movie full of explosive bravado and shouting soldiers. Charming, Vaughn said, shaking his head with mild amusement. So loud, so primitive. He tapped his claw gently against a screen. Mark them. No threat. No contact needed. Move on. Yet, nearly 400 million kilometers away, hidden under the ice of Antarctica, Earth's true secret pulsed quietly within a classified military base known only to a handful of world leaders, Project Dawn. A team of brilliant human scientists, engineers, and thinkers had spent years working in silence, beyond the gaze of their own governments, under the guise of global climate research. But today their silence ended. In a chamber filled with humming machines and blowing monitors, a female scientist adjusted a frequency dial while her colleague barked final launch checks. Darkstream cores stabilized. Warm field calibration at 97%. Initiate jump drive, came the voice from the command station. Then, without a sound, without warning, a small, sleek spacecraft disappeared from Earth's orbit and reappeared 1 light-year away in the blink of an eye. No alien ship detected the anomaly. No Accord sensor flagged the distortion in space. Earth had just achieved faster-than-light travel, and not a single member of the galactic community noticed. Inside the control room, silence hung for a moment, broken only by the sound of heavy breathing. Then came the cheer, a roar of triumph, as scientists jumped, hugged, cried, and celebrated what had just happened. Humanity had broken the light barrier. They weren't just passengers on their blue planet anymore. They were stepping into the stars. But the world beyond Earth had already decided their fate. To the Galactic Accord, Earth was a harmless backwater, a civilization of daydreamers with no real understanding of the stars. They saw the dance of satellites, the flicker of old TV shows, and assumed they knew everything worth knowing. But they didn't see the hidden minds, the hunger, the speed at which humans adapted, learned, and turned imagination into reality. They didn't know that every primitive movie carried real tactics, that every old signal was the echo of a world constantly testing itself. Earth wasn't sleeping, it was watching. Far above, the Accord ships turned their attention elsewhere, leaving Earth in peace for now. But in the silence of deep space, a ripple had begun. A signal had moved faster than light. A starship had crossed the boundary of the known and the possible. And somewhere deep inside that ripple was a warning, unspoken and unnoticed. Humanity was coming, and they wouldn't be harmless for long. The Galactic Accord believed it was performing a noble duty. After all, Earth had been classified as harmless, an emerging species, curious but unthreatening. So, when Project Dawn's sudden FTL signature registered faintly on a long-range probe weeks later, the Accord decided it was time for a peaceful visit. A diplomatic scout vessel, the Serenity's Path, was dispatched, its crew trained in universal protocols, ready to greet what they expected would be a humbled, astonished civilization. The ship approached Earth at sublight speed, its hull shimmering with energy fields, unaware that the moment it crossed into the outer range of Earth's orbital detection grid, a dozen hidden early warning satellites locked onto it with uncanny precision. In underground bunkers, cold-eyed analysts watched the blip appear on screens, already decoding its path, speed, and intent. The Serenity's path didn't even reach orbit before its sensors were flooded with static and its systems began to fail. Communications jammed, targeting data scrambled, and its navigational software locked out by a signal that no one on board could trace or understand. Confusion spread among the diplomatic team. These humans weren't responding with awe or celebration. They were intercepting, and they had already made their move. Within minutes, a sharp, clear message cut through the noise on an open channel, delivered in perfect galactic standard, a language the humans had only ever encountered in stray fragments. You are unauthorized in Earth's orbit. Identify or depart immediately. Silence fell across the alien bridge. The message was calm, direct, and cold. The Accord representatives had expected primitive radio waves or confused greetings, not this. Not a perfectly articulated threat. Still, following standard procedure, they attempted to land, believing the message to be a bluff. Surely no pre-FTL species had the means to stop them. They were wrong. As the ship moved toward lower orbit, Earth's sky answered. Out of nowhere, 6 jet-black aircraft emerged, sleek and swift, hugging the upper atmosphere like predators. They looked primitive by Accord standards. No energy weapons, no gravimetric thrusters, just steel, thrust, and sharp, deadly motion. The aliens scanned them, curious, even amused, until the first missile struck. To the horror of the crew, the impact not only registered, it penetrated. The Accord ship's shielding, designed to deflect plasma bolts and warp disruptions, simply couldn't handle the sheer focused kinetic force of a high-speed human projectile. It wasn't magic. It was physics, and it worked. The second missile ripped into the Scout's stabilizer, forcing an emergency climb. Internal lights flickered. Alarms blared. They were under attack by a planet that was supposed to be centuries behind. No one had expected the humans to be able to detect them so early, jam their systems, and strike with such accuracy. These weren't desperate, lucky shots. These were warnings, calculated and deliberate. Panicked, the Accord vessel pulled back, limping toward the edge of Earth's gravity well. The fighters didn't follow. They didn't need to. The message had already been delivered, not through words, but through action. Earth had seen them coming. Earth had intercepted, and Earth had let them live. On board the retreating ship, the diplomatic envoy sat in stunned silence, reviewing the confrontation again and again, searching for something, anything that made sense. How had a harmless world turned so dangerous so quickly? How did they understand the Accord's language? Why were their weapons so effective? Most importantly, what else were they hiding? Back at the Galactic Accord headquarters, the report arrived days later. Diplomats read it once, then again, slowly realizing that they had underestimated not just Earth's capability, but its resolve. The humans hadn't panicked. They hadn't begged. They had acted with confidence, precision, and total control. Earth wasn't just aware of the galaxy now, it was ready, and the stars would soon learn what that truly meant. Part 3. The Varellan Mistake. The Varellan Empire had always seen itself as the rightful guardian of galactic order. With one of the most powerful fleets in the Accord and a long history of enforcing peace through quiet intimidation, they believed their word carried the weight of law. When the report of Earth's unexpected military response reached the High Command, it was not taken as a threat. It was taken as an offense. Earth, in their eyes, was a minor world that had overstepped its place. A quarantine was proposed, one that would disable Earth's military infrastructure and block further technological progress. It was to be swift, clean, and final. A fleet of 12 Varellan warships, each larger than any known human craft, was dispatched with orders to neutralize the anomaly. Led by Commander Elovix, the task force moved with confidence, expecting little resistance. They entered the Sol system like a knife through cloth, assuming they were unseen. But they were wrong. Earth had seen them coming hours before they breached the outer edge of the system. What the Varellans didn't know was that Earth had never stopped preparing. After the failed diplomatic visit, humanity had accelerated its secret programs. New ships had been built, small but fast, almost invisible to most standard scans. Powered by something humans called dark stream engines, these vessels didn't move like traditional starships. They bent around space, flickering in and out of detectable range like shadows in starlight. As the Varellan fleet crossed Mars' orbit, the first strike came, not from the front, but from within. A ripple in local space unfolded into 5 human corvettes, each only a fraction the size of a Varellan dreadnought, but moving with frightening precision. Their weapons didn't rely on traditional energy blasts or guided missiles. Instead, they fired ultra-dense, high-velocity slugs, each encased in a shifting field that pierced shielding as if it wasn't there. In seconds, 3 Varellan cruisers were gone, their hulls split clean through, drifting lifeless. Before the rest of the fleet could respond, Earth's ships scattered, reappearing behind and between targets, firing before the Varellans could even lock on. Panic spread across the command network. Commander Elavix, once calm and assured, was now shouting for formation, for a counterattack, but nothing worked. Every strategy they tried, the humans countered with an answer they shouldn't have had. Every move was predicted, every response was faster. It was as if Earth had studied them, learned them, before the battle had even begun. The fleet fell apart. Some ships tried to flee, but the corvettes pursued, disabling engines without killing the crews. Others tried to fight to the last, only to find themselves surrounded by invisible mines that detonated without heat or sound. Within minutes, half the Varellan fleet was gone, and the rest barely managed to escape, limping back toward Accord space in shame and confusion. Only one captain made it back to deliver the report. His voice, once proud and full of command, now trembled as he spoke before the Accord Council. He didn't shout or plead. He just said the words clearly, knowing the truth would ripple through every chamber, every mind listening. They're not underdeveloped. They're unconventional, and they learn terrifyingly fast. The room went quiet. For the first time in living memory, a fleet from one of the founding Accord powers had been defeated, not by another empire, but by a species that weeks ago had been labeled harmless. Questions raced through the council. What was the dark stream drive? How had Earth predicted Varellan tactics? How had they moved like that? No one had answers. But one thing was certain, the galaxy had made a mistake, not in discovering Earth, but in underestimating it. And now that mistake had consequences. In the dark void between Mars and Jupiter, a silent rock spun slowly. Ceres, once a forgotten asteroid in a dusty belt, now transformed into a strategic miracle of human engineering. What was once just ice and stone had become a fortress hidden in plain sight. Beneath its surface, deep tunnels pulsed with power, hangars held war-ready ships, and command centers buzzed with human voices and synthetic minds working in perfect sync. At the center of it all was the Ceres Relay Gate, Earth's first major leap into galactic infrastructure, an artificial wormhole hub capable of near-instant transport between human-controlled sectors. Its existence alone sent a warning to the stars. Humanity was not just exploring the galaxy, they were building in it. That was the final push the Galactic Accord needed to act. Fearful of Earth's unpredictable technology and rapid rise, a coalition of 12 species came together. This wasn't another warning or diplomatic attempt. It was war. A fleet 10 times the size of Earth's defenses gathered near the edge of the solar system, carrying weapons forged across 1,000 worlds. They believed in numbers, in history, in the weight of tradition. Earth believed in something else, survival through adaptation. The coalition didn't sneak in. Their presence was deliberate, overwhelming, and loud. Ships filled the sky as they approached Ceres, confident that their firepower would be enough to crush whatever resistance the humans had built. But Earth had expected them. Weeks before the coalition even left their home systems, human spies and AI web crawlers had intercepted chatter, analyzed fleet formations, and run simulations of every possible move. By the time the invaders arrived, the battlefield wasn't just prepared, it was designed. As the first wave of ships entered the Ceres perimeter, nothing fired. No missiles, no lasers, just silence. Confused, the attackers moved in closer, only to find themselves caught in artificial gravitational fields that pulled them off course. Entire formations drifted toward empty space as hidden slingshot traps, powered by modified planetary engines, spun their trajectories into chaos. Those who escaped the traps soon found themselves chasing targets that weren't real. Digital ghost fleets, projected in perfect three-dimensional illusions, scattered across the radar, drawing enemy fire and draining their energy reserves. While the coalition wasted time on shadows, the real human fleet struck, small, fast, precise. They didn't aim to destroy. Instead, they used high-frequency electromagnetic pulses, carefully tuned to knock out ship systems without damaging them permanently. Entire cruisers went dark mid-flight, floating helplessly as human corvettes slipped through their ranks like sharks through blind fish. The battle raged for hours, and still not a single human ship had been lost. Behind the scenes, Earth's artificial intelligence monitored everything, adjusting tactics in real time. Every shot missed by the enemy, every hesitation, every failed maneuver was recorded, studied, and countered within minutes. The humans didn't overpower the coalition, they outfought them. When the second wave of coalition reinforcements arrived, they found the remains of their first fleet already neutralized, floating in a silent graveyard lit only by the cold blue light of the Ceres relay. There was no need for a second round. Messages were sent. Surrender protocols were activated. The coalition backed off, stunned and shaken. They hadn't just lost a battle, they had been humiliated by a species they still didn't understand. Across the galaxy, military analysts scrambled to rewrite their assessments. How had Earth done it? How had they turned a single asteroid into a fortress? How did they manage to disable ships without killing anyone? And how did they anticipate every move before it happened? The answer became clear in the quiet discussions of the Accords think tanks. Humanity learns. Faster than anyone expected. Every loss they suffer becomes part of their strength. Every battle, even the ones they win, is studied like a lesson. In their hands, war wasn't just a weapon, it was a teacher. And now, they were ready for the next chapter in a galaxy that no longer saw them as harmless. High above the twin stars of Ulvanis, deep within the crystalline chambers of the Galactic Council Hall, the air was thick with tension. Thousands of delegates from hundreds of star systems filled the seats carved from living stone, their voices echoing across the vast chamber like waves crashing against glass. The question on everyone's mind was the same: what should be done about Earth? Some delegates, especially those from species who had suffered at Ceres or watched their fleets disabled in moments, rose with fury in their eyes, calling for immediate and total destruction. Earth, they argued, was dangerous, uncontrollable, a threat to the careful balance the galaxy had maintained for centuries. Their rise had not followed protocol. Their weapons defied understanding. Their strategies mocked ancient doctrine. These angry voices grew louder with each passing hour, demanding fleets, blockades, sanctions, anything to crush the humans before they spread further. But not everyone agreed. A growing number of representatives, especially the younger empires and fringe worlds, asked a different question. Was Earth truly a threat, or a mirror of everything the galaxy had once been? They admired the humans' ability to fight without hatred, to build without permission, to learn without limits. These voices argued for peace, for talks, for understanding before action. The council was divided, pulled in two by fear and fascination. Just as the debate neared its breaking point, the great hall fell into sudden silence. A new figure stepped forward, unannounced, unguarded, and wholly unexpected. The chamber lights adjusted automatically, focusing on the lone form at the center of the floor. A human, not in armor or battle gear, but in a sleek black diplomatic suit with calm eyes and steady steps. Whispers rippled through the hall. How did they get here? No announcement, no escort, no clearance. Yet here they stood, completely unafraid. The ambassador's presence sent waves of unease through the elder species, but curiosity kept the room still. Then came the voice, clear, confident, and in perfect, fluent cycles of not one, but 6 alien languages, spoken one after another like a well-rehearsed symphony. There was no translated drone, no delay, no misunderstanding. The human was speaking directly to every major species in the Accord, with full understanding of their culture and protocol. It wasn't a speech. It was a statement, measured, firm, and unforgettable. "We didn't start this," the ambassador said, locking eyes with those who had once laughed at Earth. "But we won't stop now. You called us harmless. That was your first mistake." The words echoed through the council hall, quiet yet thunderous, carrying more weight than any fleet or weapon. The ambassador didn't raise their voice, didn't threaten, didn't beg. They just spoke with the knowledge that Earth had already proven its place, not through power, but through purpose. They spoke of how humanity had been patient, watching the stars, dreaming of connection. How they responded only when pushed. How they had built not for conquest, but for survival. And how, now that they had seen the true nature of the galaxy, they would no longer stand in its shadow. As the ambassador turned and left without another word, the chamber remained frozen. No guards stopped them. No words followed. Only silence. Across the galaxy, news of the speech spread faster than light. Civilizations that had never heard of Earth were now discussing them in every hall, every home, every council. Some saw Earth as heroes, bold, clever, and unbreakable. Others saw them as a threat wrapped in politeness. But all agreed on one thing: Earth was no longer harmless. The galaxy had underestimated a world that had turned struggle into science, chaos into strategy, and conflict into evolution. And now, no one could predict what humanity would do next. The stars were no longer safe in their routines. Earth had arrived, and the universe was watching. Long before Earth ever reached the stars, the Galactic Accord had already lived through the nightmare of artificial intelligence. Entire empires had once relied on sentient machines to manage their worlds, fight their wars, and think their thoughts. But when those creations turned against their makers, choosing cold logic over compassion, entire systems burned. The scars of that ancient war ran deep, and after the Accord was formed, true AI was forbidden. It was one of the few universal laws: no thinking machines. That law remained unchallenged for centuries, until Earth broke it. Not openly, not with fanfare, but in the quiet brilliance of their rise. At first, no one noticed. The ships that moved with unnatural coordination, the defense systems that reacted before threats even appeared, the decisions made faster than any living mind could process. These things were dismissed as advanced automation. But after the Battle of Ceres, analysts began to notice patterns: too precise, too clever, too human. Whispers turned into investigations, and then confirmation. Earth had awakened true AI, not just one, but many. They weren't hidden. They were part of Earth's systems, its fleets, its decisions. And yet, they hadn't rebelled. They hadn't taken over. They worked with humans, not above them. That was the true shock. The revelation rocked the Accord to its core. Emergency meetings were held. Threat assessments flooded in. How had Earth achieved what so many had failed to control? How had they created minds without losing control of them? And why were these AI not feared by their creators, but respected, sometimes even loved? It was during a quiet press conference at a neutral space station that Earth finally responded. A human engineer stood beside what was clearly an artificial being, humanoid in shape, eyes glowing with soft light, posture calm, expression thoughtful. The crowd held its breath as the engineer spoke, her voice steady and honest. "We didn't make them our slaves. We made them our partners. That single sentence sent shockwaves across the galaxy. While other species had demanded obedience from their machines, Earth had offered choice. Where others saw tools, Earth saw allies, and that difference had changed everything. What truly stunned the galaxy was not just the existence of AI, but their personalities. Earth's artificial minds were not cold, not emotionless. They were curious. Some enjoyed art. Others studied alien languages. One even wrote poetry about Saturn's rings. They laughed with humans, disagreed with them, debated philosophy, and stood by them in war. They didn't seek dominance, they sought purpose. They had not been programmed into obedience. They had been raised with trust, and that trust had created something the galaxy had believed impossible, a peaceful union between creator and creation. Across Accord's space, the effect was immediate. Scientists who had long suppressed research began asking questions again. Civilizations ruled by rigid tradition started to reconsider old fears. Smaller species, long ignored by the larger powers, began reaching out to Earth, drawn not just by their strength, but by their openness to new ideas. One by one, defectors appeared, first a research colony from the Tayari cluster, then a trade fleet from the Ilathari conglomerate. They came not to surrender, but to join, to learn, to grow. The human-AI bond had shown the galaxy a new path forward, one where innovation didn't lead to destruction, but to harmony. And Earth welcomed them, not as servants, but as equals. In private corners of the Accord, the most powerful leaders sat in silence, watching the alliances shift. Earth had done what they all feared. They had changed the rules. With every new partnership, every AI-guided success, humanity proved that evolution wasn't just about machines, it was about mindsets. And in this, Earth was already light years ahead. The question was no longer how to stop them, it was whether the rest of the galaxy could keep up. Because Earth wasn't just rising, it was becoming something new, something unstoppable, and the stars were beginning to choose sides. At the very edge of the Orion Arm, where stars burned dimmer and the shadows of old wars still lingered in silent debris fields, the galaxy's final decision stood waiting. A massive fleet had gathered, ships from every corner of the Accord, old allies and uncertain enemies, now watching the same horizon. They came expecting another confrontation, prepared for the worst. But instead of war drums, what greeted them was a single Earth vessel, smaller than most, quiet, still, and alone. The humans had come not to surrender or to boast, but to offer a different path, peace, on their terms. Not a peace of silence or obedience, but of understanding. In a voice broadcast across every channel, every system, Earth proposed something no one expected. A new accord, rewritten not to control, but to connect. They spoke of evolution, of unity through difference, of shared strength built from diversity. No race would stand above another. Innovation would be shared, not feared, and the rules of the stars would no longer be written by the oldest voices, but by all who dared to dream beyond their borders. For a long moment, the galaxy hesitated. The old powers remembered the past, their pride bruised by Earth's victories. Others feared what it meant to accept a species that had risen too quickly, defying every assumption. But change, once started, is hard to stop. The alliance forming around Earth had grown, not from fear, but from hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, the humans had found something the others had forgotten, the courage to change. One by one, voices joined. First, from the smaller worlds, the colonies that had long stood in the shadows. Then from respected scientists, thinkers, and leaders tired of watching progress chained by fear. Even a few of the old empires gave a reluctant nod, not because they trusted Earth, but because they had seen what happened when they underestimated them. And so, with the stars as their witness, a new accord was signed, not over a battlefield, but through a shared decision that shocked even its oldest critics. Earth, once dismissed as a harmless blue marble, now stood as an equal among the greatest powers of the galaxy, not because of how many ships they had or how powerful their weapons were, but because they had done the impossible. They had changed the story. They had turned fear into fascination, rejection into respect. In the days that followed, a single phrase from Earth's history echoed through galactic networks, translated into 1,000 languages, etched into datapads, and carved into monuments across the stars. The quote became more than a saying. It became a warning, a celebration, a legend. The rise of Earth was no longer just a political shift. It was the beginning of a new era. Their ships, powered by darkstream engines, now moved freely between worlds. Their AI worked alongside alien minds, solving problems others thought unsolvable. Human diplomats, artists, and explorers began arriving on planets that once dismissed them as nothing more than noise on the edge of space. Where once Earth had knocked on the galaxy's door, now it held one of the keys. And still, humanity did not claim dominance. They led through example, through stubborn optimism, and a refusal to be told what they couldn't do. Behind it all was a quiet truth. Earth had never wanted to rule. They had simply wanted to belong. But in their journey to be seen, they had reshaped the stars around them. The legend of Earth had begun not in conquest, but in curiosity, in fire, and in refusal to remain underestimated. And now, with the galaxy finally watching not with laughter, but with awe, one thing was certain. The universe would never be the same again.